You're ready.
Okay, thank you. I would like to call to order the Park and Recreation Commission meeting of October 13th, 2020. Let me read this brief statement. This open meeting of the Needham Park and Recreation Commission is being conducted remotely, consistent with Governor Baker's executive order of March 12, 2020, to suspend public gatherings, and as such, suspend the open meeting requirement to have all meetings in a publicly accessible physical location. For this meeting, the Park and Recreation Commission is convening by Zoom as posted on the town's website, identifying how the public may join. Please note that this meeting is being recorded and that some attendees are participating by video conference. Accordingly, please be aware that others may be able to see you, and please take care not to screen share your computer. All supporting materials that have been provided to members of this body are available on the town's website unless otherwise noted. For this meeting, the chair will introduce each speaker, and after their remarks, the chair will go down the line of members, inviting each by name to provide further comment, questions, or motions. Please note, each vote in this meeting will be conducted by roll call vote. And with that, I would call us to order. Welcome, everyone. So is there anyone here, Stacy, that you can see from the public who might like to have a comment?
Just
No?
Kim Parsons is here just to observe. Hi, Kim.
Oh, okay. All right. Hi, Kim. Welcome. Okay, so why don't we go right into our agenda, and that item would be the director's report, which is provided in the package that was emailed to you, and maybe you can take us through it, Stacy.
Sure. So thank you for your patience on this. As Kristen said, we both were powerless for a bit longer than we anticipated that we would be. Some of our fall programs are going on right now. We've got some great activity and participation in our outdoor programs. Our virtual ones are a little more sluggish, but we are getting more activity on them than we have in the past. And we're hoping that the Needham Trails 5K run starts to pick up some speed. Right now it is a little slow, but we're hoping all of our commissioners sign up and get out on the trails and do some running. So thank you guys, that'd be great. The pools are 85% closed, slightly more probably. They are coming tomorrow morning to put the cover on the family pool. They were gonna come today, but putting on that ginormous cover in the rain is not a great idea for anybody. So I'll be meeting there tomorrow morning, and they'll be buttoning that up. Fields and permitting are going pretty well. The litter is better according to Eddie, but only slightly. So we are still pushing carry in, carry out, and putting or at the very least putting it in the barrels that are provided. I met with the principal and the vice principal for St. Joe's to discuss some options. This is where we'll need a vote from you guys. So I don't know if you want to do this now. I'm happy to do it now. We did find a time slot per day that would be around the 1 o'clock time slot for them to be out there Monday through Friday for a couple of weeks that are left in October. I talked to Eddie about it. He is still very, very concerned. He is not a pro. He's not a pro vote on this, but we were trying to find some sort of middle ground for St. Joe's to get outside. They did request recess and lunch. I said no. So we're talking about a phys ed class or wellness class once per day.
So, Stacy, do you have any idea how many children that would be out there?
15 to 30.
So 15 to 30 for 30 minutes, 5 days a week?
So it's a 45-minute time slot. I wrote 1 to 1:30 because I think their time slot is like 1:11 or something. I don't know what it is, but it's that like end of day time.
Okay.
But it's a 40 or 45-minute slot. They did say they wouldn't be on the field for more than a half hour, but we will see how that goes.
How strongly does Eddie feel? I mean, is he adamant? Because we don't usually do something in contravention of Eddie.
Yeah, he's very adamant. He's concerned mostly that we put a lot of money into this and it does get a pretty decent beating just from the why. He's concerned that when the spring comes around and we're trying to bring it back to life, he does not have it in his budget to put extra into this, so that we would have to be prepared for it to come out of our budget to bring it back to life. I typically would not go against Eddie at all. I think all of our fields are going to be in a similar circumstance because they're getting way more activity on them than they ever have for a season. Especially the fields that are closest to our schools. For recess, now we're doing classes, now we're doing lunches, now we have everything out there. So I think that overall it's going to be a concern for the spring, and probably we're going to be back in the same boat. I don't see this changing for the spring season. As far as the schools are concerned, they're still going to be out there in the tents. They're still going to have lunches outside. They're going to get those kids out of the building as much as possible if we're in school.
Okay. So since this is on our agenda under facilities, I'm going to push it off till then and ask the commissioners to give their comments when we get down to that agenda item, especially since it needs a vote.
Mhm.
Okay, if the commissioners are okay with that. Okay. Thank
Good.
you.
Playgrounds are all open. We are already hitting some certain playgrounds that need more fibers. So we are getting another delivery. Kristen is coordinating with Tony on that for the engineered wood fibers. Specifically, the elementary schools will need it mainly because any DP. No.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yep.
They are governed by the EEC, which has very particular protocol that they need to follow on their playground surfacing. And if they ever did a spot check and our playgrounds weren't prepared, any DP would be shut down. Like all of them. So it is something that we have to focus on. And it's frankly, they should be where the EEC is requiring them to be, and they should always be there. But because the wood fibers move a lot, they're not always there. So we will be working on that. And then playground inspection in New England will begin the first week of November to start the process of assessing all of our playgrounds more formally. No questions, great. Claxon Field was approved at town meeting
Yay!
without so much of a whisper
When
of
it
anything.
through by consent, I was quite surprised, but very happy.
I don't know if there are any updates from you, Chris, on CPC.
None. I mean, like I said, I was there at the meeting and I thought there was a question for one of them, but no, it went through and passed unanimously. So I was very happy. I thought it did a great job. And I do have to say that the chairman of the Park and Rec, or chairperson, did a fantastic job as a counter for the votes, Miss Chaston, when everything came out. So it was very nice. And honestly, we lucked out. The last two town meetings that we've had outside could not have asked for more beautiful weather. So it was great to be out there.
Awesome, thank you.
Thank you. We counted each and every vote. Since it's outside and the moderator couldn't really apparently hear the ayes and the nays very clearly. So there was a lot of walking for me from one end of that parking lot to the other. But okay, great. Yeah, all my steps.
For the assistant director position, we have submitted the certificate of necessity, which is the first form that has to go to HR and finance in order to start the process. This is for every position that we have. Anytime we have to fill a vacancy, this is just the process. I have not heard anything from them to date.
We're speeding along.
Welcome to budget season.
Yep.
So we had our very invigorating budget how-to meetings last week. They were joyous. Charlie Brown's teacher taught them. It was very easy to follow. And so we are working with the guidance given in that meeting and the documents, which I will read later, And so the process has started.
And Stacy, can you share a little bit of what the guidance is? Are we to deliver level services, level dollars, level anything?
The guidance is to request what you would request in any given year
Okay.
and be willing to be flexible.
Okay.
But they
In other
want
words,
us
that the
to,
scalpel coming out afterwards.
I mean, the thought from Dave is to request what you need and what your department needs, because they want to know what we need versus what we can get. So that is the process. There was no request to do level funding. So right now we're just going to go for what we need.
Okay. And I
And then
guess
they just hold on tight when I get the phone call.
so I would assume that you will put in realistic numbers for opening and closing the pool, because that's really where we missed last year, right? We missed horribly on that one.
Yeah, so my big items that we're gonna try and figure out are obviously pool programming / if we move towards a camp process or becoming a legal camp or a legitimized camp, that will change some of the staffing issues, staffing numbers, sorry. And then maintenance. And when I say maintenance, I mean things like playground maintenance, pool maintenance, and just facilities in general maintenance. And see, we don't have any maintenance line items, but where we can make more realistic numbers so that we're not constantly moving money around to get stuff done.
And just to clarify, since this is recorded and I don't know if it gets transcribed or anything, when you say legal camps, it's not that we have camps that are illegal, but just that our programs, there could be an opinion that they could be considered a camp as a program. Regulations. Right. Okay.
I apologize for that. So we currently run summer programming. We are looking into the process of becoming a certified camp under the Board of Health. And so to do that, there's different paperwork, different staffing numbers, different requirements. We are not there yet, and we haven't started any processes, but that is something that when I was brought in was on the table. So we will start moving forward with that or getting more information about that.
All right, thank you. I've now, commissioners, questions, comments? I see Commissioner Toolan has his hand up, so I'll start with him.
Thanks. I got two different questions, so we'll work backwards. Are we going to have a discussion about whether or not we want to move forward with what you were just discussing, Stacy, about camp versus programs? Because I don't believe that we've had that discussion. And even if we do agree as a commission, and I don't know where the other commissioners stand on this, I do think we should look at when that should happen. Because if we are still in this same situation that we're in next year, I don't know if the timing makes sense. And it impacts our budget, right? So if we are thinking about that a camp is, if we need to move to a camp and that will have higher staffing needs, is next year the right year to start that? Or do we build the foundation for that if that is indeed the direction we want to take as a commission, and go from there and then scope it out over the year and then bring it into the following budget? I just feel we need to have a discussion as a commission about the direction and the timing of what we want to do there. I don't think we've had that.
And that is true. I agree. We talked about it a little, but we have not had that discussion. And I could use a refresher, and maybe the other commissioners already know this, but what's the advantages of either and what are the disadvantages of either? Because we have always tried to stick with a program and not a camp, right? Because we felt that it was a little bit easier to run it. And so we made sure that we walked on the program side of the line. Excuse me. So we do need to have that discussion.
Okay. We can certainly have a broader discussion about this because obviously we want your input on this. But I'm going to be very frank in saying that you have been running programs for the last 10 years that should not be run as programs. That should never have been run. And the Board of Health looked the other way for many, many years. And they've acknowledged that to me. And now, especially since COVID, I don't think they're going to look the other way anymore. And as far as staffing goes, it does change it, but it's not going to change it any more than it changed for COVID this year, for some of the numbers that we already had to put in place. And I'm not comfortable running the programs as programs because they're not.
So Stacy, I guess I appreciate your passion. What I'm asking is we need to see the proposal and the impact and the rationale presented to us, right? Just having you say that is great, but for us to review and discuss and evaluate and understand, we need to see something more. I'm asking for something more formal, which is typically what we do when we make this kind of shift. You know, what's the revenue impact? What's the cost impact? What's the safety impact? What's our spacing going to be? How does it, to the chair's point, how does that change fundamentally what we do? You know, we need to understand all of that and then make the decision as a team, not anything else. I just feel like we're operating without facts and we need facts. The same diligence that you're asking us to do on the playgrounds, we need to do with this decision.
That's fine. I'm happy to do all that. And like, I wasn't planning on doing that at this particular meeting. So I'm happy to do some of the digging.
Yeah, no, I'm not expecting it for this meeting, but if we are expecting it to have impact on the budget for next year and we decide that we want that to happen, it's going to happen fairly soon.
Yep.
Right. So could you give us something in writing? Could you put together an outline or a memo that gives us the pros and the cons and the differences? Because to be perfectly clear, we ran programs at the direction of our director. So we took our guidance and made our policies with what we thought was what I'm sure is well-intentioned information from someone who would be more knowledgeable than I think any of the commissioners. So now if you're proposing that that needs to be changed or that we were doing something in error, we would just want to know the rationale because we thought what we were doing before was the proper thing. And if it is not, in your opinion, then we would probably need to know why that is before we got on board with the change. That's where I am.
I can put together
Okay.
a memo and I can send you the link for the mass codes so that you guys, or I can decipher some of the mass codes for you and put the link on there because like any good Massachusetts codes, they're pretty indecipherable. So I will work on that this week and I can send it out ahead of like just as a memo. And if you have any comments or questions, you can just respond to me directly and not to the group.
Okay, terrific. All right, thank you. Commissioner Toolan, you think you had other questions?
Yeah, I just had one more question with regards to fields. What is our policy? I guess, who owns the nets, does it come from the schools? Does it come from us? Does it come from the sports groups? Like, who provides that stuff? Like, I think track, I know we have a whole bunch of track and field stuff as well. Like, who provides that for our fields? Is that us or is that some combination?
My understanding, and I'll give it to you, and then if Kristen can weigh in, because I am learning this as I go along too. The sports groups own all of the equipment on the fields. And any equipment they have gifted to, say, like the school at Mitchell, they gifted the goals to the school. So the school owns the goals, but they have to provide their own nets. The schools forget that on a regular basis and reach out to me, and then I have to remind them, and it's back and forth. But my understanding is we don't own a whole hell of a lot when it comes to equipment. It's the individual sport groups, the user groups that own it, that maintain it, that service them, and they just get stored on our fields and our guys move them around. Kristen, did I miss anything there?
Nope, except for the parks team generously does not toss away any equipment that is left on the fields for extended periods of time, and we do lock them to gates to keep them safe and away. And we locked up the nets that were left behind from other user groups at the time that we were not allowing any passive recreation at fields. But technically, any equipment that is left is abandoned in some form after a season's over, and without proper, communication about storage, they could end up at the RTS. But the parks team has been really careful about where they've placed it. But Park and Recreation does not own any large equipment. They've never provided any equipment. Soccer handles their nets, baseball handles their balls, their bases, and all that stuff. And
Well, so let me get a specific follow-up, right? So for field hockey at Perry Park, there's no nets. We've never had a program for field hockey other than the schools. So somebody in the town had to buy those nets that are at Pollard and are at the high school.
My guess is
Because
that the
there's
high
never
school
been a youth group to provide them. So does that come out of the school budgets? Does that come out of our budgets? Because what we have is a situation where we don't have a youth sport. Like, I can understand what you're saying about bases for baseball or soccer nets, but we have high school and middle school sports. And I don't know, but if the soccer club donated the nets at Memorial, great. But we own somebody owns the goalposts for football, right? Maybe it's Memorial Park, maybe it's the school. So I'm trying to I'll be specific about field hockey in that there is no youth group. The youth group just got started, and they're having a banner year, which is fantastic. But somewhere we have hockey nets, and they're just not on those fields for whatever obvious reasons. The other schools play at them. So you're saying that organization needs to pay for their own nets when we've never had this sport at a youth level before.
So we have never had that in our budget that I know of, Matt. We have it not in the Park and Rec budget. I always thought that it was the sports groups that I know, like the soccer club provides those goals, and they, the Eddie's crew moves them around and helps store them, but it's never been in the Park and Recreation budget, and I don't believe it's ever been in Eddie's budget. I don't know where else it would be. I don't know if the schools ever have something like that in their budget. I don't think so, but I can't speak for them. But it would not be in the Park and Rec budget to provide something for a new sport.
That's not run by us.
Yeah, it's not run by us. So
Right,
I don't know.
If Dan was upgrading his nets, then I would reach out to him and say, do you want, can we keep these here? Can we move these here? That often happens with high school sports. But I'm new, so I was just trying to find out too, but yes, we don't own any of the pieces of equipment on the fields.
Okay.
And I agree, like it's $3,000 per net for a regulation youth hockey net, a youth field hockey. They're not cheap. So when Dina came to me, I just assumed that this had been sorted out, but I wasn't part of the planning process of this way early.
Well, and so maybe what that means is that we should be permitting them at a place where the nets exist, right? We permit soccer on soccer fields where nets exist, whether they were granted. Same with lacrosse, right? Because again, the schools have these nets. So Pollard has 2, and the high school has probably more than 2, because there's some at DeFazio and there's some at the high school. So maybe in the future, what we need to be thinking about is how we permit the fields based on where the nets are. Because, baseball didn't build the backstops. Baseball didn't put the lines in. Baseball didn't build an outfield fence, right? So
Right.
so all I'm saying is, and we can't solve it now, but we have to figure this out going forward, because we have sports now where we didn't have a youth team, but we had the equipment for the high school or middle schoolers to utilize. So somebody in the town had to pay for those somewhere. So maybe we can do a better job of permitting them at those fields.
I mean, maybe, Matt, we can talk about it. I'm a little confused where you're driving at. I mean,
Mhm.
soccer is permitted where there's a soccer field and they have their own nets. So
What I'm saying,
I-
Cindy, is field hockey is permitted at Perry Park and there's no nets. But we have nets at Pollard and at the high school and at the Fazio. Now, I understand why they were given Perry. I'm not arguing that. But what I'm saying is, what I'm getting at is, any youth group trying to get something, going and buying 2 lacrosse nets is a lot cheaper, or buckets of baseballs and bases is a lot cheaper startup cost than $2,000-3,000 nets for a youth group program. So if we want youth sports to get built and we have resources in the town, we should find a way to help them utilize the existing resources of the town, even though they're not park and rec resources. We should help them utilize those versus having them, somebody just getting started and then finding out that they've got to pay $6,000 a year or $6,000 for 2 nets, and then they've got to pay for lining and all of this, where we have school sports that utilize that same sport and those same fields. Why not leverage it? I understand why we didn't do it this year. I'm asking that we pick it up for the future. It just,
well, okay. I mean, we can.
I think that's
talk
a great, yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
I think it's a bigger conversation that we should postpone to another time, because field hockey uses the same fields as soccer and football during the
agree.
same season.
right.
And
we'll
so
have
to
figure
get
it out.
them on the high school field is going to be real difficult.
Oh, I'm not, yeah.
But I think it's a good conversation to have, and we should certainly have it. Yeah, I put them on Perry because I was asked to squeeze them in,
No, that
not
was
knowing
Right.
that
We had
they
no
didn't have
idea.
equipment. So
Right.
I think moving forward, it just has to be a longer conversation and have everybody at the table.
Yeah, but I just wanted to understand, I didn't necessarily, I thought the youth groups owned the stuff, but so I'm asking for a future longer term conversation on the topic. But
Yep.
you know, I wanted to also understand who owns the equipment. Is it the schools or is it the youth groups? Right? And that is what I was trying to get a handle on.
Right. I mean, I would also think that this should have been part of the planning for this group. I
Mhm.
understand the new group, and I'm very happy that they've started. I'm very happy for any girls' sports, to be honest, that come along, but it should be part of their planning too, that they would have to have the
Well,
equipment.
they were never told any of this, Cindy. That's the point. They were
They had a
not told
different
about
staff
nets. They were
liaison.
not told about lines. They were not, we tried our best. We did a really great job of trying to help squeeze them in, right? Where we didn't need to, where we didn't have it before. Now, they're not on a true field. Eddie went out and lined Eddie, you know, we're there, we're getting them started. But nobody from Park and Rec told them that they needed to buy their own nets. They were gonna have to refresh their own lines. They might need to supplement with their own landscaping or work that from Parks and Forestry. None of that was presented to them when they went out and started this program.
Right.
That is
And,
Right.
and that's understood. I don't know, you know, I wasn't involved with it either. I don't know what your involvement was, but it's a conversation for the future. I don't know that question shouldn't have been asked by that group. Like, what do we do about equipment? Do we have to get our own equipment? I don't think that's an unreasonable thing for them to have asked, and maybe they did ask it, but I don't know that we would have needed to necessarily have said, oh, by the way, you're starting this sport, this group, do you have equipment? But regardless of that, we should do what we can to help, but just, we need to be clear that we don't own that equipment and we never have, and I would not foresee putting that in our budget. So if in the future we can put them on a field where that equipment exists, that's terrific. But I think it's a bigger issue than just, you know, we should have told them. I guess I'm not willing for Park and Rec to take all the blame here. So
I'm not asking for us to, Cindy. Well, that's why I wanted to understand where the equipment comes from so that I can go have that conversation with them. But yes, I think that, there's always conversations to be had on why we're where we're at. So, but yeah, I just think it's probably it's a field scheduling issue for the future about how we juggle different things in different spaces. If this program indeed grows, I mean, they've had over almost 100 girls play this fall, which is phenomenal. And the high school coaches are seeing this now as a feeder program, which is great. So, and it's an alternative to the other sports where it's always, girls could either play softball or soccer, that was it, or run. There wasn't something else for them. And so I think we'll see this pick up pretty quickly, much like we saw with flag football pick up as an alternative to tackle.
Okay. Any other questions from the commissioners on the director's report? Okay. Thank you, Stacy. Why don't we move on to the discussion items? The boat launch.
No new updates.
No new update. Okay. Walker Pond. When we last left it, Walker Pond was going to be discussed by the Conservation Commission, I think last week, maybe on the 8th, 7th, 8th, something like that. Do you have any idea what happened, Stacy? Because I don't.
Yes, I attended that meeting. So Concom basically supported it and are going to move forward with it. I'm trying to see if there's like a draft scope for me to get some info off of, but they were very interested in doing the step-by-step process of like not going right away with pesticides, but they did want DPW to look into the budget numbers if we had to go there and include those in the project pricing so that they were prepared. So basically getting all the numbers short of dredging it so that they had a fuller picture. But conservation was behind it, definitely.
Great. So what do you think the next step will be? Will Katie call another meeting or will we just?
She's already related some information, some scopes to Tony to update. And he's gonna look into some numbers for the pesticides and any of the chemicals that would be part of the, part A, B, and C. And then I'm guessing they will run another meeting after all of that information is collected.
Okay, great. Any questions or comments from the commissioners on Walker Pond? No. Okay, thank you. Rail Trail.
Karis and I are looking to set up a meeting for the Rail Trail Committee. Why are you waving at me, Chris?
I'm trying to unmute. The space bar didn't work, Matt. Thanks. Mr. James Goldstein is also wondering about that. I know I've been forwarding you the email, so any communication that you can go out. Now, also in the past, I know that Eddie was the chair and that Deb Anderson was supposed to be the chair. So I've been on the communication with her too, but I'll just filter everything through you and just if he keeps on asking, you can see the emails.
So I'm the chair. So yes, send them my way. And Karis is trying to coordinate just to figure out what they have in DPW land and who will be the liaison over there, whether I think he's trying to get Bob to do it because he probably knows the most about it. So that's what they're working on. Those were the emails last week.
Well, thank you.
Okay, great. Any questions from the other commissioners? Okay, thank you. Open Space and Recreation Plan, any updates since last week? Okay.
No new updates.
Okay. New program idea, pickleball. So I asked Stacy to put this on the agenda since I was asked by
Can I mute myself for a second?
I'm sorry? Okay.
Stacy had to mute herself for a second.
Oh, yeah, thank you. I understand completely, but I was asked by two members of the select board what we're doing about pickleball if we're addressing it, if we're thinking about it. And I believe I was probably not the only commissioner that this was mentioned to. So, yeah, I see Commissioner Gerstel raising his hand. So I believe there is interest in pickleball from that very small sample, because it means those select board members are being asked. I don't think they were asking because they themselves want to play, but that could be the case. So I said that we had discussed it at some point, but we had not moved forward with anything. So I asked our director to put it on the agenda, because I think we probably need to think about pickleball. Stacey, you can unmute yourself now. I think you can. You're thinking about it. Okay.
Okay. People all over the world are very interested in pickleball. It is the new thing. People love it. I have no real reason to not think about it and not find a place to do it. It really comes down to location. While pickleball is very popular, tennis people are very passionate. And I don't advise taking away a tennis court to turn it into a pickleball court. So we just have to find a place to do it and figure out if it's an option. Maybe Needham Racket wants to throw us some money and we can put up some paddleball or pickleball courts somewhere, because they are looking to do that over there. But it really is going to come down to where can we do it? Because we can paint lines anywhere. But once we paint lines and put up or have a movable net, it's going to be very busy. So wherever we paint those lines, and normally I would say we can paint them on a basketball court, but we can't do that now because we have lunch out there. So
Right.
All of our basketball courts currently are lunch rooms. So where else can we do it? And pickleball players are very, the surfacing has to be very smooth. It can't be because my first thought was well, we could try to do it down, but at Pollard at the old courts, but we would have to really resurface it.
Correct.
Totally.
Right.
So it's not like we can just throw up some nets, because if we put up a bad court, we will get more phone calls about pickleball than if we do nothing. Right. Or plan out a better process in the future. I have put down courts inside gymnasiums, get the wellness teachers to coordinate and collaborate, and they use it for their programs in school, and it's great. Obviously, we can't do that right now because we can't use the gyms. And no, we cannot use the multi-purpose room.
So I have some thoughts on pickleball, but I'm curious what the other commissioners think. And I believe, Kristen, would you like to chime in first before the commissioners?
Just very briefly, we did try to start a pickleball program like we have our basketball and our badminton and our volleyball that we run typically in a typical year from 8 to 10 on a weeknight in the high school gyms. And we even spoke with Kathy Pinkham because they were redoing the floors at the time to have some lines that are pickleball. Now, did the lines get put down? I don't know. But we were told that that is not appropriate for pickleball. So it is not like the department has not done anything. We did try a good faith effort about two school years ago when right after we had moved. And it was not well received. So it is more of a, like Stacey said, a location thing, because we did try with how we typically program adult programming, especially with an indoor space, and to do it like a co-ed, like we do, like I said, basketball and badminton and volleyball. And we were told adamantly that that is not appropriate. They want a time that's midday outside. So that's all I wanted to add.
Okay. Thank you. Any comments or questions from the commissioners? Commissioner Gerstel.
Yeah, I mean, Stacey, you hit the nail on the head. I know Pollard, we really haven't had a tennis court there in years from what I remember. We use that as I think a first home for the skate park. or we wanted to do that for the skate park. So there really hasn't been anything there, but you're right, over the years it has got, you know, dilapidated, and it's going to need a good spruce up if we're going to do anything, because you're right, if we do it half-assed, we're going to get more phone calls than doing it right. So I think if we do it right, it's a start to do it for something, for a court that you're not taking away from the tennis people because they haven't been using Paul for a long time. But after that, I mean, you're not going to take away from the high school. You're not going to take away from the courts on the lower part of the high school. You're not taking away Newman. So, I mean, those are the, you know, the prime courts that we don't want to take away from that just to kind of supplement one user group. So I think Pollard, if I had to vote, Pollard would be the ideal spot, I think, for now to start it.
Okay. Commissioner Toolan, get your hand up, Commissioner Toolan.
Yeah, I do. I'd actually disagree with Mr. Gerstel for rarity. That court is used very heavily by roller hockey. And you take that away, we have no roller hockey available anywhere in town. And I think we take that court away and use it for something else, you're going to have every hockey player, which I think there's by far more of them in town, screaming louder than pickleball. What I would suggest is maybe we should be looking at, when we're looking at our playground redos, should we be looking at, are there areas at those playgrounds? I'm thinking in the tot lot, maybe the Perry basketball courts, but that takes away a basketball court. Are there places, or, you know, at Mills Field, are there places near the playgrounds when we go evaluate that we could put in pickleball? Number one, it spreads it around. It gets them to places where it's not all focused in one spot in town, but it also, we could look at it as from a dollars and cents perspective. Hey, we're going to redo the tot lot, do the playground, maybe add in pickleball or something like that, so that we can bring in more user groups into that conversation. To me, that would be a starting point versus, you know, I really think if we tried to use that Pollard space, I do agree it's probably the fastest and easiest, but you're going to lose hockey. And that's a user group that we need to think through.
So,
They have permitted user group?
Yeah, is there a, it's just a pickup, right? Pickup roller
It's
hockey.
just pickup.
It's not any.
It's just pickup.
Oh,
it's the
okay.
same thing
All right.
like we did for the pop-up skate park. But I'll tell you, you go down there any Saturday or Sunday, and it's usually pretty busy with kids rolling in and they even bring their own hockey nets, set them up, and play.
Okay, I don't know that I feel as strongly about it as you do now. I mean, it's not a permanent group, and it's a town facility. But Stacy, you have a response or question, comment?
No. I definitely don't think we should necessarily oust a bunch of kids that are not tagging our fences and our tunnels and just playing a sport and getting together. Like, yeah, we shouldn't oust those guys, especially in the time of COVID. Like, let them play. That's great. That's what they should be doing. One of the things I want to caution with pickleball is people that play pickleball, especially people that play pickleball, don't expect to pay anything to play pickleball. It's not like tennis players where they're like, yeah, we have to buy a tennis membership. They are adamant, they are ferocious, and they will go all the way to Kate to not pay a dime. So while I think it is an excellent idea to put in a pickleball court, we have to know going in, we're going to put in a court and never make a dime off of it. Or if we do, we have to like run tournaments. It is.
So my the only thing about pickleball is it primarily played by, and since I'm part of this group, I can say it's senior citizens, right? That's my take. I've only seen it in Florida, although I've seen it for a long time in Florida when walking down the street, and it's played, they've lined tennis courts. So the tennis players and the pickleball players share the courts. I'm using that word share loosely. And I think over the last 5 years, the pickleball players seem to be more numerous than the tennis players. I don't know. And I think, but again, it's in an area where it's a lot of senior citizens. And I think pickleball is easier in some regards for seniors because it is less running, maybe less strenuous than tennis. So I think that
Easier on the knees and the hips.
easier, right. But in Needham, I think we have a lot of tennis players. I think our tennis courts, I'm not a tennis player either. My sense is the tennis courts are pretty busy. And we are community of a age distribution, right? Not like in Florida where you see more. And again, I'm part of this senior group, so I'm not singling anybody else that I'm not part of. So
pickleball has been around for many, many decades. It became very popular in Florida in some of the over 55 communities as like an amenity, which means that they are everywhere. And in Florida, you can play year round, so that you can share a tennis court because there's thousands of them and there's not limited time. In New England, that is not quite the case. And if you talk to some of my colleagues in different communities that have pickleball courts, they have a lot to say. But I mean, this is no surprise to me that that they want it, and I think we should put a court in somewhere. But I think Matt's right into tying it into some sort of other project, like a playground project. I think the tot lot is actually a perfect place for it in that area. But I think we have to be more realistic about what kind of user group we may be inviting in. I think we just have to treat them like the street hockey kids, like they're just going to show up and play.
Well, it doesn't mean we won't try to get them to buy badges like we do with tennis. What I said to one select board members, well, we're going to do a review of the tennis courts, and perhaps we could be reviewing the idea of pickleball when we do that. And again, I don't know how much interest there is. You may be getting more. There's a lot. Okay.
Yeah.
But we do need to respond to that regardless of.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't received any emails of late or anything. I just mean in general, pickleball is growing.
And does it need to be played at a court with fences? I mean, I've only seen it on tennis court, so I don't know anything else about it. Does it have to have fences like a tennis court does?
If you don't want to chase the ball around all day long, then yes.
It would be impossible to play without fence.
Yeah.
It would be, okay.
It's like playing hockey without boards. It would be miserable.
Yeah, okay. All right, you can't do that. Okay. Then what, any suggestions?
But you can I think you can put a lower fence around it, Stacy.
Yeah.
You don't need like the full tennis court fence because the ball is not being hit as hard or traveling as fast.
That's correct.
You don't.
Don't tell them that, but that is correct.
Oh,
Go Bruce. Correct me, man.
all right. Well, actually, you do need the high fences because the club I belong to in Newton had one basketball court, and they put in 3 pickleball courts, and still kept a very small basketball court. And my kids, I say kids, but they played at least twice a week all summer long, and they had a lot of fun playing doubles. I don't think it caught on as much as I thought it was going to catch on because I kept hearing it was so popular, but they played it, and they're like 37 and 38 in that age, and they smashed the ball. So fence is not going to do you any good. And
It's no longer just a senior sport.
Yeah. No,
Okay.
They really had a blast playing. Man, they got me out there playing, which, I've had 2 knee replacements, so I don't move very well, but I was still able to participate in the game, which was really fun. But the good thing is you can take one, there's 2 tennis courts at Pollard, correct?
I think it is.
There's 2. So you could leave one for the rollerblade guys and take one court and put in at least 3 or maybe 4 pickleball courts because they're small. And, so you're serving a whole lot more people by just taking that one court, divide it off, and then put in, 3 to 4 pickleball courts. I think that'd be a great idea as long as the rollerblade guys would still have their space and have their options. And then you have a whole nother option you play doubles. That's 12 to 16 people playing in that court. So I think that might, in my opinion, might be a great idea. But you do have to have a really good surface, because if you don't have a completely flat surface, people are going to be twisting their ankles, and you know, you don't have any bumps. It's got to be smooth, you know, like a good quality tennis court.
So, should we ask our staff to put together some thoughts on pickleball? I mean, I don't know what the next step is. If there is that much interest, I think we need to at least take some initial steps and see where it goes.
It's likely going to be a capital project, right?
I would think so. Yeah.
Yeah, it will be a capital project. I think maybe we should probably get the beat in the town and do a survey, like, are people that interested in pickleball? Because if it's a small cluster of people, then maybe we don't spend the town's money on that. If it's really a broader reach, then definitely we do something. I don't know. I don't know specific to Needham. I myself have not received any emails. The pickleball squad has not come to visit me. So I don't know
You
necessarily
will
about
now
Needham.
because you said so.
I did. I did.
Okay. So again, I've only seen pickleball on a tennis court. So I only saw one pickleball court on one tennis court, but it sounds like, Bruce, from what you're saying, that you could have more than one pickleball court.
Oh, absolutely, and would serve a lot of people, and they play doubles, and it's maybe in Florida it's a senior sport. I can just picture the high school kids loving to play that game. It's
a lot faster. It's really fast, and if you've got doubles going, it's really.
I mean, if you're a senior, you probably play it slow. If you're, you know, young, it's a great alternative to tennis, because both my sons play tennis, and both their girlfriends and wives play tennis. But there's varying levels of expertise in the tennis. Anybody can get up there with a paddle and play, and there's going to be almost levels the playing field. That's why it's so popular, I think.
Okay. Well, I think we have kicked it around very loosely over the years, and Kristen pointed out we tried to do something inside. So I think we should probably address it. And I think that's the best way to go about it, Stacey, is to try to get a feel for how much interest there is. Is it a small group, or is it a large group? I don't know.
I can take some pictures of the courts that we have and send them to everybody.
Yeah, that would be.
They did like this one small basketball court, and I'll send some pictures. It'll be eye-opening for sure.
Okay, that'd be great. All right, thank you. Well, I guess more to come on pickleball. Any other comments on that before we move on? All right, thank you. Skate park.
I visited the skate park. It does not appear to be as banged up as Eddie's guys had said. That being said, it is heavy and cumbersome, and I didn't take everything apart to look at it. So now it comes down to, do we tax the Parks Department with one more issue of moving this thing and setting it up while they're on this schedule? How much do you want me to push, Eddie?
Commissioner Gerstel?
And again, I don't want to take away from the youth, and Stacy brought up a good point. The more that they're doing recreational activities and not spray painting, tunnels and destroying pieces of equipment, the better. But isn't it getting a little bit too late in the season? Like, I just be afraid that it takes a week to get it out. It's up for a week, and then we got to take it down for a week because the weather is just too cumbersome and it's not worth it. I mean, are we looking for the season, or are we looking for spring?
I would prefer to look for spring, honestly.
Okay. I
But
agree.
last winter was mild.
True.
And so it's kind of a gamble, because we could have one thing is cold, but skaters will skate when it's cold. It's the snow. We didn't have a ton of that last year. So I don't know. Snow and ice, I should say.
But
What is
we probably would not have left it out last winter. If it had been out in the fall, we probably would have put it away. So I mean, I would
Is it
say,
the kind of thing that's supposed to go away?
It's a pop-up, it's a pop-up
pop-up.
skate park. It's mobile. The whole idea is that you can move it from place to place.
Okay.
Even though it's large and heavy and cumbersome, the idea is that
Yeah, I tried to pick up one piece. I was like, oh, this is too old for this. It's not good.
yeah. I mean, I think, I'm not sure if perhaps a former commissioner didn't move it with his truck and some friends at one point, but that was not the intent. So, I mean, it needs, you need some strong people and you need a piece of, a truck that can carry it. So,
Yeah.
but the idea, I don't think, is that we would leave it out in the winter. It's a pop-up that it can be moved, but that pop-up feature, is not quite as simple as just a pop-up tent, right?
So then I would recommend that we go for early spring.
Okay, yeah, and maybe communicate that to Eddie that, we would love to see it go out in the spring, and that we think right now it's probably a little bit late, and we understand the constraints that he's under, and we're happy to wait till spring. How do the other commissioners feel? Chris, sounds like you're okay with that. Commissioner?
I'm fine with the spring. I'd rather have it for a full season and people know about it well in advance than to do all the work, put it up, and then we broadcast it, and then we got to put it away as quickly as we put it up.
Right. Commissioner Toolan, Commissioner Williams?
I tend to agree with the decision, but somebody needs to tell Commissioner Geddes. This was her, yeah, not it.
Oops.
Yeah, this is her project and I agree with her passion about it.
That's right. I had
Well, if she was on the meeting tonight, she would have had a voice.
Right. And she might have,
Wow, Mr. Stone Cold.
Wow.
I'll tell, and you know what? Since I said that, I will gladly tell
Yeah,
her.
I think you just signed up,
I
pal.
will gladly, I will.
You're just
Right.
fortunate there's social distancing and she can't hit you from 6 feet.
all right. Thank you, Commissioner Gerstel. And we will please let the minutes reflect that that was his idea and that he's going to communicate it. So we appreciate that.
So noted.
Okay. Unless there is another comment on that, we will move along to tennis courts.
Like I mentioned in our last meeting, the tennis court, basketball court maintenance program is non-existent. So I'm working to reach out to some vendors about surfacing, about maintenance, about just having them come and take a look at what we have so far and get some real budget numbers to find out what kind of project these may be. And with the tennis courts, one of the things that we're coming up against, I mean, all of the surfacing, that all the places that I visit definitely need more updating. The fencing in some of the places need some updating. The courts, the basketball courts, if we did any updating, I would make sure that the backboards had the, there's a term, they're not silencing, but they're, when you use their outdoor backboard, so when you hit them, it doesn't reverberate and make that
Muffled a
clang
little
sound.
bit, yeah.
Yep. But it really, it's the surfacing and the poles that we're gonna look at first.
So
Can
Stacy,
we have them look at pickleball as a part of that process? Like
Yeah, absolutely.
fold that in?
Because sometimes, depending on the courts, well, basketball is one thing, but even tennis courts is sometimes they have, you can like sneak in a mini one next to it, but we would have to look at that. But yes, we will absolutely talk about, all these guys are doing pickleball courts all over the place, so definitely.
and do you see this be, any of this having to be part of the capital plan? Do we need to get these, I know you're calling it maintenance, but resurfacing and new fences perhaps could be capital, so.
Yeah, I mean,
should
it wouldn't be in our FY22, certainly.
Mhm.
But it will be, you'll start, I believe it should definitely be part of the capital plan, because I think it's gonna hit that number. Unless we decide, it'll be tough. If we do like one basketball court, it may not. But if we do 3 tennis courts, without a question.
Okay.
And then tennis courts have an added question of like, what do you want to do about the gates? Do we do card swipes? Do we do locking gates? Do we do, you know, so that changes the fencing system totally. Or we have to upgrade it dramatically if that's something that we want to look into.
Okay. Okay. Questions or comments from the commissioners? No. Okay. All right. Now to Greensfield and St. Joe, since we successfully kicked that can, 35 minutes down the road. I would love to hear from the commissioners on this item. I'm sympathetic to St. Joe's. I'm also reluctant to do something that Eddie doesn't agree with, since he's the guy we rely on for our fields. But I would love to hear what the commissioners think. Commissioner Gerstel?
No, you're right. I mean, it's a 50-50 split. I mean, it is about the kids, but it's also about the property that we oversee. And that's part of our job as commissioners and directors and assistant directors to, govern the lands that we have, that if people are abusing it and we're not collecting, say, a user fee for it, it's like they're trashing our fields. That with Greens Field, I know that was just renovated 8 years ago, I think maybe, with the new playground. I mean, we're now looking 8 years and Eddie's talking about it almost being destroyed and hoping he can bring it back for the springtime. I mean, that's stuff you don't want to hear for a field that's only 8 years old. I know it is used a lot. I mean, between baseball and YMCA and everything that's going on there, it would be a shame to take that field offline that's in the centerpiece of our town because it was abused in the fall. But I am kind of torn on it. That, I mean, even looking at it from someone that is part of one of the user groups, if baseball were to give up the remaining of their permits to help out for the fall, I know that we would do that to kind of help an organization. But I don't know if it's too late for us to give it up to help out Greens Field, because I know YMCA is constantly using it, and even though it's only a 45-minute period during the day, I don't know if that helps. I mean, I'm willing to see what we can do to help out, but I don't want to over push it if it's really going to put a kind of con in Eddie's idea of what can and what can't be done.
Well, let me jump in on that. Chris, I think that's a very noble offer and I appreciate it, but baseball uses by and large the diamonds.
Sure.
And doesn't, especially for that level, doesn't really affect the green part of the
Right,
field
the grass.
too much.
Okay.
So it is a nice offer, but I don't know that that's going to hedge our bets too much.
Okay. Want to throw it out there.
Thank you.
Commissioner Toolan?
I agree. I'm torn. I guess Chris, you sort of seem to say no user fee. Have we approached the subject of user fee? And then the second question is, what about inclement weather? Now, usually they won't go outside if there's snow on the ground, but they still might go outside if the fields are wet. And what's our process of preventing it? Because frankly, that's to me our biggest concern. Yes, the extra added traffic potentially is a concern, but I really can't argue that we're really saving it from 30 people walking on it at any given point in time during the day. I think the issue is, you're talking 30 kids for 45 minutes. I guess it's 5 days a week. To me, the biggest concern about that is if the field is soft and they shouldn't be out there. Now, granted, they may not go out there on their own accord, but we may need to have some process in place to make sure that they don't go out there. So those would be my two pieces.
Yeah, and I agree. So I had that conversation with them directly during this meeting with them because I said, A, I want you to get on the field status update list. But B, often that doesn't come out till the afternoon. So we have to be in direct contact on a regular basis before you use that field for anything. So we did have that conversation and they were very much willing to text or have a conversation whatever mornings that was questionable, or I could reach out to one person, whoever that was, and say like, not today, the fields are too wet. So we did sort of preliminary set that up to be prepared to move forward if we were going to.
What about a user fee?
They are prepared to pay a user fee. I said that we needed to discuss it because they fall in that in-between realm, but I did say that they would probably fall on, along the same lines as the Y, but I was not positive, and I don't get to make those decisions. But they are very much prepared to pay a fee.
Okay.
I told them it was $1,000 an hour, and they didn't believe me. But I tried.
Commissioner Williams, any,
Yeah, I went by St. Joe's a couple times during the day, and they had hundreds of kids outside between the paved lot in the back, and they've chained off the grass in the front. And the kids out there with, you know, blankets, having their recess and having a snack or whatever. It seemed like they were doing pretty well. I mean, and I'm sympathetic towards their need, but I still don't think it's our responsibility to put ourselves out after the fields have already been permitted to take care of them. And they're an independent school in the town, and there's a lot of non-needed residents that go to that school. And frankly, I thought they were doing pretty darn good with their own facility.
So one of the things that they were requesting, at first they were talking to us about recess and lunch, and I was just like, no, there's no way. You don't need a field for that. You can do that anywhere. And then it switched over to like, well, what about 8th grade wellness class? Like, can we get these kids out and really running and moving? Which I thought was a more significant reason. The other thing that sort of was like bouncing around the back of my mind is if we help them out with this, I don't know what kind of indoor gym space they have, but maybe it becomes more of a collaboration with this group as a long-term, like, can we run a program over there? I don't know. Kristen's face is going like, oh, dude, don't go down this road. But in my brain, I'm going like,
cut on my lip.
they have, from what I understand, a great indoor gym space. We want to run more programs. Can we help them out? And then maybe they can help us out? I don't know. I mean, we would obviously pay for the space, just like we're going to make them pay for the space. But is this really something that we can work for both of us? Right now, we have what they need. But I can't imagine we have more space than we can program.
right. Commissioner Toolan.
I mean, look, if this was some other non-school associated field at 145, like DeFazio, we probably wouldn't be having this question, right? Because we'd still need a permit, we'd still need them to do it, but you know, we're making accommodations at the other schools with tents and other things. Now, granted, those are Needham public schools. I get that this is a private entity, fully get that. But it's a landlocked private entity in the center of town. They do not have anything but their asphalt, and they now have no gym, right? They were fully self-contained before. And I agree, it's not recess. The out-of-town students, I don't think that's something we can argue as well, because I think by per percentage of population, we have out-of-town students in our own school system, and we have a lot of out-of-town students in our youth programs. So we can't sit on the fact that it's out of town. That's a mixed bag. I think what we have to focus on is, I think our director made a really good point. Is there some quid pro quo we could work out with them? Potentially. Who knows? Maybe not during basketball season, because I know that gym is booked solid, right? Both gyms are booked solid, but that's also, they're going to need help, because that whole program, if that's at risk for the winter, that is a major program that we're going to need. We're going to want to work with them to try and backfill somewhere, somehow. Because if St. Joe's basketball can't go the way it usually goes with the hundreds of kids in our town that utilize that program, if that's not available, again, there's another opportunity for a partnership somehow, some way, somewhere else. So if this opens up a new partnership, it's an hour a week. I also don't like to go against Eddie, but if there's a user fee, it's an hour a day for a week. We have some restrictions on what it could do. Hey, maybe this is a test run. it's not a permanent thing. We'd have the right, maybe we reserve the right to see if it's just for the fall and we have to go back and review it for the spring. I mean, this is a test, not locking us into something permanent.
Okay. Thank you, Commissioner Gerstel.
Quick question. I should know this, but I am blanking. What programs do we run on greens fields in the springtime?
Baseball. Why?
Take away the diamond that where Stacy was talking about more of the green space. That do we as Park and Rec do any of those programs in the springtime at Greens Field? So say that Eddie comes to us and is like, you know what, I'm going to need an extra 30 days to open up Greens Field. Will that hurt any of our programs? Or is Greens Field, the green space, not really used for the springtime? So I'm saying, like, if we have that extra room to kind of give it an extra month to kind of get it up to snuff, is that a possibility? Or are we hurting or jeopardizing our programs that we do in the springtime? I don't want to see a field come offline, but if it's something that's not really hurting us and we have that extra 30 days to maybe get the growth out of it, is that a possibility?
I think it's the YMCA that would be the most affected, but I guess
Okay.
I would look to Cynthia and Kristen to tell us what else would be affected.
And I don't want to jeopardize them. I wasn't sure for us. I assumed it was the YMCA, but I wasn't sure how heavy it was in the springtime.
I think it's mostly Y, is that right, Kristen? And
Yeah,
baseball. And if we did punt it an opening, I wouldn't let baseball in there either, just for the record there, Chris.
We put the
We
skate
can't
park there.
close a
when-
field, but not then have baseball. The optics of that would be
Right.
horrific. But for the little guys, we can probably find another space.
Well, I would be willing to entertain a motion if somebody would like to make a motion for us to grant some space to St. Joe's. If there is no motion, then it doesn't go anywhere. So I am willing to entertain a motion from the commissioners, and again, I will leave it up to you folks to advance a motion.
I make a motion that we do a test run with St. Joe's for use of Greens Field for the hours agreed to by our director for the fall, with the understanding that there is a user fee that needs to be determined, as well as two other things. One is a communication and clear communication between Park and Rec and St. Joe's about no field use on inclement weather, as well as if the fields do look like they are getting overtrodden or overused or overabused, then we have the right to pull back, and even in the fall.
I will second that.
Okay. Any discussion?
Stacy, how do you feel they would respond to something like that if we gave them the kind of authorization to do it, but with those caveats that Commissioner Toolan put in there of, hey, listen, after 2 weeks, if we find out the field's in worse shape than it was, we're going to have to pull it. Do you think they would be for something like this? Or are they willing to
They'll
get
be
anything?
thrilled.
Okay.
Okay.
I like the way that was worded, Commissioner Toolan. Thank you.
Glad it was
Thank you.
recorded.
Me too.
Any further discussion? Commissioner Williams, any discussion?
No.
Okay. Okay, I will, could I ask you to read it back, Kristen? Do you have it written down? Could you read it back? That would be helpful.
If my shorthand still works, Commissioner Toolan made a motion to permit space on a test run to St. Joe's for the hours agreed to by the Park and Recreation Commission, Park and Recreation Director for the fall of 2020, with understanding that there will be a user fee set at a later time, a clear communication plan regarding inclement weather, and a possibility of rescinding of the plan if there is more damage to the field than can be permitted.
Great, thank you. Okay, if there is no further discussion, I will call for a roll call vote, starting with Commissioner Gerstel. I'm sorry, Stacy, did you have a comment?
I was just clapping for Kristen's
Oh. Okay. thank
ability
you.
to do that.
Take that requirement.
Touche.
Very good. All right, calling for the vote. Commissioner Gerstel,
Aye.
Commissioner Williams,
Aye.
Commissioner Toolan.
Aye.
The chair is also an aye, so it passes unanimously. Thank you. Do we need to discuss the fee, or Stacy, do you have some suggestion, or you?
I recommend that we charge them in a similar fashion to the Y.
Agreed.
Okay. Okay.
Agreed.
Do we need to vote on that, or are we clear?
You know, if they're just considered a user, and now they're a user group.
Okay, all right, terrific. All right, so we just need to communicate that to Eddie, and then we need to probably duck, right?
Well,
I nominate Chris
I'll
again.
take I'll
I'll do
no,
it again. Come on. 2 for 2 today.
I was gonna say, Chris took Commissioner Geddes. I'll take Eddie if
Well, wait.
if it needs be.
Kristen had her hand up. Did you want to call him?
Right
Kristen,
now.
I did see that.
I can definitely.
Kristen talks to him every day about the field status.
To figure out if we're opening, closing, or if there's any fields that need to stay. Anyway, my question is, there's a couple of different user fees associated with our user groups as they stand. So there's a non-resident fee, and there's also in adult sports, not necessarily in user sports, there's a field use fee as well. We usually require that they have proof of residency, and the user groups usually provide us an address on their roster, which fulfills that requirement. And there's just an additional charge for non-residents of Needham. So just as a point, if
How do we
that,
charge the Y?
Yeah, what do we do for the Y?
Yeah.
the Y submits a roster, and most of them are residents. It's the same. It's pretty much the same. They usually have a pretty significant field user fee though. It's thousands and thousands of dollars a year. 15, I think, was last year alone.
I think we should mirror what the YMCA will be do for them.
Okay.
But
That's my opinion.
But it would be prorated for the amount of time that's utilized.
Right, right.
It's not,
45 minutes a day.
yeah, it's going to be
It's a per
prorated.
person fee.
Okay.
So we may have to tweak it because of all of the programs, the Y gets charged per person. So if Johnny is on 3 different programs, Johnny only pays once, or we only charge for Johnny once.
No, we charge for Johnny 3 times.
We do?
Yep.
Well then,
Yep.
okay, done deal.
do.
Done with the
But
Y
we are-
guys.
That's why we call him Johnny 3 times.
We're also now pretty far into the fall season, right? We're also at the middle of October, so.
Yeah, we'll prorate it for the amount of hours versus typical season is 8 weeks. They're gonna get 4.
Okay, all right. So Kristen, do you want to talk to Eddie? Is that the, if you don't want to, you know, as a staff, you can certainly say no.
I think it would be helpful for one of the commissioners. Kristen's going to talk to Eddie because Kristen talks to Eddie every day. But I think it would also be helpful for the commissioners to reach out to Eddie and say, we hear you. We still think this is best practice right now, or something along those lines.
All right.
I'm
so,
happy to do it. Somebody just send me his number.
we can set-
555-1212.
Okay, all right. So Chris, maybe you can communicate with Matt. I know Chris
Sure.
Gerstel talks to Eddie on a very regular basis. So, okay, I'll leave.
Either way.
He calls
Great.
me.
All right, thank
You're
you.
special.
Okay. Whew, that was easy. Okay, on to the next item, Halloween event.
We're having one next.
Great.
I'm just kidding.
Yeah,
Um,
pumpkins, right? Yeah.
Yeah. So, Kristen, I'm going to give this one to you.
So on the 24th of October, we're gonna have a family, oh goodness, what do they call it? Family Fall Fun Day, and it's gonna be very COVID friendly. And so we're gonna set up tables down in the lower parking lot at the Rosemary, and they'll park at the upper part, and it will be 10 families at a time, and the tables will be limited to just the members of that household. There's not gonna be any cohorts or anything like that, just families. And if you are a family of one and you're over the age of 65, that is absolutely welcome. The
You, Cindy.
I know, I feel like I was just targeted there,
No.
Kristen.
I just want to be very clear that, you know, it was actually came from a pool thing where it was like, this is a family time slot. Can I be a family of one if I'm a senior and I want to swim in the family pod? And the answer, of course, was yes. And the fee didn't change, but you're more than welcome to have a family of one in Needham, even if you're 18 years old, your choice. The fee, I think we'll discuss later, but basically, we have carving pumpkins, we'll have carving supplies, they'll leave them. They can also decorate them with paint and stickers and all sorts of things. And then there will be a story walk on the trail that is Halloween themed. And that is how we've adapted a spooky walk type event for the 24th. And that will hopefully have a fee that you will talk about later. The later part of the evening after dusk will be a drive-through. We'll light all of our carved pumpkins on the lower part of Rosemary, and people can come and drive through and enjoy with their kids amazingly carved pumpkins. For those that want to carve a pumpkin that can't necessarily make our event or don't want to make our event because they have baseball or soccer or field hockey, they can drop off a carved pumpkin and we will happily display it for the town to enjoy for the evening. We will secure the pumpkins overnight and families can come pick them up the next Monday.
Great.
We're also going to reach out to the businesses and see if they would like to carve pumpkins or be part of this event in any way, shape, or form.
Okay. Kristen, I am so signing up my husband. I'm just telling you. We're going to be a family of two.
Love it.
Senior citizens, yeah. Okay.
I would never have guessed you're over 65, Cindy, so.
Just, Kristen. Just. Okay. Great. Thank you. Any questions?
I just thought that was a great explanation of the event.
Well, it's an hour event, so there'll be 6 different time slots. So 60 families total.
So we have a recommended fee that we would like you to vote on.
And that would be?
$350 a table. No.
Is that all? That's it?
That include pumpkins and knives?
Yes. No knives. No, why does everybody want knives?
It's $20 a table.
$20
The pumpkin would be included, as would the decorating supplies and the carving utensils.
Okay.
I think that's a bargain.
Non-knives. No knives.
Yeah. So would someone like to make a
Carving
motion?
utensils that are not knives. All right, I guess I got to get up to speed on how that works.
Someone like to make a motion for us on for that fee? I believe we have to vote on that fee, don't we, Stacy? Would someone like to make a motion on that fee?
Make a motion that we approve the $20 fee for our non-scary family fun Halloween event.
With safe knives.
Safe family fun event.
Do I hear a second?
I'll second it.
Okay. Let me vote on. Take a vote on this. Commissioner Toolan,
Aye.
Commissioner Williams,
Aye.
Commissioner Gerstel.
Aye.
Chair is also an aye. Passes unanimously. Thank you. Thank you, Kristen. Stacy. Our 1775 walk, we're still walking.
Still walking. I have a meeting set up for this coming Friday, so I can update you all at the next commission meeting.
Perfect. Okay. Next action items, we have some meeting minutes that were included in your package that was emailed to you. Minutes of June 26th, July 13th, and July 27th. Thank you, Kristen, for those 3 meetings and catching us up much closer. Thank you. Anyone have any questions or comments on the meeting minutes?
No.
No. I would
Would you want to
entertain a,
entertain a motion on all of them or individually?
I'd be happy to take one for all of them.
I would like to make a motion to approve the minutes of the meeting of June 26th, July 13th, and July 27th.
Thank you. Do I hear a second?
Can't hear Bruce.
Oh, Bruce, did you second?
Yeah, I'll second that. Sorry.
All right. That's right. Thank you. I didn't see your hand go up and then you were muted, right? Any comments before we go or questions before we go to the vote? Okay. I'm voting in favor. Commissioner Gerstel,
Aye.
Commissioner Williams,
Aye.
Commissioner Toolan.
As I was not at two of them, I'm going to abstain again. I would.
Okay. And the chair is an aye, so it passes passes with one abstention. Thank you, and thank you for those minutes. Let's see. Stacy, it says program pricing, but was that for the Halloween event? Okay, great. Next meetings that are coming up, Stacy and Kristen have listed those dates, October 26th, November 9th, November 23rd. If you think you can't make one of those, please let either Stacy or me know ahead of time. Issues not
Is the
reached.
23rd, the Monday before Thanksgiving?
It is.
It is Thanksgiving week. Is that a bad week? I mean, it is a bad week, obviously.
Yeah, I think we usually bail.
But we do, except I'm not planning to see any family this year, so.
That's why I kind of left it on there because probably not a lot of travel happening.
But I thought, I mean,
Short table for Cindy's this year.
well, I mean, my children will come, but I don't have to. I don't plan to see extended family.
Thanksgiving
Don't
in
have to.
PJs.
Exactly. Yeah, we might do a sports theme. That come in your favorite sports jersey. We do stuff like that at my house. But anyway, it's just my kids, so it will be, Anyway, is that a bad week for Matt? Would you like to move it from that week?
I just don't, honestly, I haven't looked that far ahead. Just,
Okay.
Depending on
We can revisit
whether
next meeting.
yeah,
We'll revisit
whether I'm
next week.
picking up my daughter from college or I don't know
Right.
what the plans are.
Right.
Whether I'm packing
You're gonna
her
let her
all
come
up.
home?
You know.
Over there.
She can't stay there, so.
Probably wants her home. All right, so why don't we revisit that particular date at the next meeting, and people have a better idea what's going on with Thanksgiving and everything. Okay. Issues not reasonably anticipated. Stacy.
Ooh.
We have 2 special events that have been requested.
Okay.
They are both drive-in movies. They are both schools. One of them is St. Joe's. One of them is Broadmeadow PTC.
Okay.
Now, Kristen, do you think we should vote on this?
Isn't it Sunita?
No. Oh, Sunita's one is gonna get the kibosh. That's a third one. We also have Sunita's might get the kibosh because we have a third one, which is a bingo night at Sunita Williams.
Outside?
Superintendent Gutenkanst. Did I say that right?
Yep.
Sure.
Dan.
He is talking to Tim from Health and Human Services about, he has told the PTCs that there will be no small events this year because of COVID. Without knowing that conversation was happening, we were getting requests and talking with Tim. Tim has since talked to Dan, and I believe we are gonna halt some of these requests, but I do not know for sure. And
Okay.
I have been told that I should find out tomorrow. I think Tim was waiting for a more formal note or memo from Dan about it. But this could affect those programs, the tree and wreath sale, because we cannot, if the schools are saying no events because of COVID, we should not be permitting events from their programs. And I believe Tim feels like some of the, I mean, we're just getting inundated with all these little things. And as the numbers are ticking up, I think Tim and Dan are both like, we should be doing this. So
So the boosters are not going to do Christmas?
the boosters have put in a request.
Yeah.
But I don't know where that's gonna fall on if Dan wants it to happen or not, because it is a school, while it's not a PTC, it is a school. Maybe it's not a school, whatever.
I don't know. But
They're affiliated. Yeah, I've got a couple of questions on this, Ray. One is if there are outdoor events, then, and we're allowing students to participate in outdoor athletics, I have a really hard time drawing a difference in line, right? If we are going to follow the same practices, better practices potentially, then kids playing soccer at the high school or field hockey, you know, we can't kill the tree sales. Granted, that's a third party. Booster Club they are a school affiliated group, but they are, you know,
Cool.
they're not the schools. I don't know if they fall in that purview, but if a PTC wanted to do something in the Fazio parking lot and following social distancing rules, is that something that the school committee or the superintendent should overrule, right? Because you're creating a conflict with the sports. So if we're going to shut things down, then tell us we're shutting things down. That's a whole different animal. But saying that we can't do booster tree sales or we can't do a drive-in movie at Fazio sponsored by a PTC because the school isn't allowing things, it's a little bit of a double standard with what the sports are allowed to do.
If the Board of Health says that they cannot do it, we're sort of,
right,
Then
No,
we're
I
done.
agree, but I'm just
Okay.
saying, I agree, but I'm just saying, if the Board of Health is going to say that we can't do something like that, but but the state Board of Health is allowing us to do sports, we're going to have a really hard time defending that, and Tim needs to understand that.
right. I would agree. I mean, I don't know what the PTCs are planning, but the Booster Club is not students necessarily. Of course, it's run by parents. I don't know what the student involvement is with the actual sale of Christmas
The
trees.
students staff it, but if they're masked and following all the guidance, I mean, what's Tim going to do for all Christmas tree sales in town, right? I mean, that opens up two broader pieces, right? You know, what happens to the Masonic Lodge? We already know that
Athletics.
what's happening at Volantes, what's going to happen. You know, we already know other places are closing, but you know, this is a major fundraiser for the students. These students don't have sports for the most part right now. They're still struggling with a lot of that, right? But we do have allowed some sports to be played, and the kids are following proper guidelines as determined by the state. So for us to overrule it and then say you can do this, but you can't do that,
But
it is
I
Tim's
hear what
call.
you're saying, but it's Tim's call because it still comes down to the local Board of Health gets to
Right.
to follow more strict guidelines. I think the concerns are kids are coming home sick. Kids, like there's been a kid in this school, in this school, in this school, in this school, all around the Commonwealth, and the numbers are ticking up. So I don't know if that's what's driving this. I don't know. I have not yet spoken with Tim directly, so I don't know what the driving force is. I just wanted to put it on your radar. Have you vote on the event or approve the event as long as we can move forward with it according to the Board of Health.
Okay.
Because one of the events is before our next meeting.
So have you
That's the
received
Anita Williams one.
an event request? Have you
Say that
received
again?
Have you received a special event request? You have. So we can't vote if wasn't in our package, right? I didn't see it.
No, it's not in your packet. That's why it's coming up now and they not reasonably.
Can you email them out to us right now and so we can see them. Usually,
Yeah. In the meantime, Commissioner Williams, did you have a comment?
Yeah, I've been I've been involved in the Christmas tree sale for years, and there's always 2 parent volunteers for like a 3-hour block, 2 to 3 parents. Been there. We have half dozen students that basically help people pick the trees. It's all outdoors. I think they even pay outdoors. So
yep.
nothing inside at all. I don't see kiboshing something like that would do a lot of damage to the Boosters Club, and the kids look forward to it. It's social, but it's a safe social event, I believe.
When Tim and I first talked about the boosters sale, we were both like, this seems totally fine. This was before the conversation that came up recently. And I don't even know for sure that that's going to happen. I just wanted to make you guys aware of it if it did, so that you were prepared ahead of time.
But generally, you sign up about 8 players or students, and 4 show up. And, you sign up 4 parents and 2 show up. And they all seem to get the job done. It's not like there's a whole crowd of people there. It's kind
Right.
of waves. I don't see any problem with that.
Yeah, and I guess, Stacy, the thing from Dr. Gutekunst is what's the scope that he's talking about? Because there's more than just PTCs. There are, the parents, the Friends of Needham Track, which supports cross-country and track teams. There's, the captain's parents is of all the different sports at the high schools. There's, all these other, there's the arts and music group at the high school, that there's all these other groups that they may not be doing anything indoors, but they are doing activities for their groups, whether they be fundraisers or other things. So, I guess we just have to get a clear guideline of what Dr. Gutekunst is thinking, because I know that just based on email and other conversations, these things are still progressing at the school level.
It looks like Stacy has emailed a special
It
event
did.
request.
So the event that's coming up on the 25th for Broadmeadow is not a drive-in. That's why Kristen's face did that thing. It is a playground, pumpkin patch, kindergarten thingamajiggy.
Ooh.
That's a technical term, by the way.
Good.
They are also planning on, in the middle of November, to do a drive-in, which is where I got my circus crossed. So St. Joe's is trying to do an event for a drive-in movie on the 25th, but I haven't actually received an official special request. Kristen, did you see that anywhere? I didn't look in Park and Rec today, but I haven't seen it. We've been going back and forth with them daily, or Chris has, but not you.
Where do they
Oh,
want to
like
do
that.
it? Where does St. Joe's want to do it, Stacy?
Tophasia. It's the only place to do it.
Okay.
So like what we did, but same thing, but just they run it.
Well, that doesn't fall under Dr. Gutekunst anyway. So,
St.
Right.
Joe's, no.
No.
No, that one I was hoping to get for today because you're gonna have to either vote
can't vote on what we don't have.
for
Yeah.
like a minute
Right.
once I receive the request, but I haven't received the request yet.
All right, well, let's focus, since we don't have it, let's focus on the Broad Meadow one. It looks like it's at Broad Meadow, 4 sessions on the 25th, as you said, which is a Sunday, between 12 and 1 to 5. So it's that afternoon.
Mhm.
See any problems? Does everyone have a copy of it, by the way? Or do you guys have a chance to look at it? Okay.
Looking at it right now.
Okay. Any issues that you see with it, either Stacy or Kristen, that you think would make it a problem?
I don't see the oh, here it is.
I'm sorry, Kristen, I couldn't hear you.
Outside of Dan saying no, and this is being at a school location with a school PTC, that's the only thing that I see.
Yes. I mean, if you do approve of this, we would approve on the basis that the Board of Health also approves it.
Well, during COVID times, isn't that pretty much understood, Stacy? I mean, I think that the Board of Health has some pretty far-reaching powers and that they can shut down.
Certainly, but if I still need your approval
Right. But I mean,
to move.
I don't even think our has to be subject to them if they say no.
No.
It doesn't, right? I mean, that's my thing, right? The commission understands that the Board of Health has very far-reaching powers and certainly respect that, especially during these pandemic, which seems to be never ending. But you don't see any issues with traffic, with number of vehicles, number of people and all that stuff. That's kind of what we rely on the staff to tell us if it's a problem.
No, there's a lot less foot traffic down in Broadmeadow now.
Yeah, okay. Any questions from the commissioners?
So I see they're asking for exclusive use. Is that just of the playground? Is that of the parking lot? I don't, like, do we have permits granted for this day, and are we gonna have baseball have a conflict? Like, what do they mean by exclusive use?
Of the playground.
In the parking lot.
And this, I think, is just exclusive use of the playground to control the numbers, the parking. I mean, if they're only having 4 sessions, about 50 people maximum, that's not, I mean, that's not that, it can't be that many cars because assuming that a kindergartner's not driving themselves, if 50 people are in a car.
And they're doing sessions, so.
Right. Baseball have a permit down there?
No conflicts whatsoever.
Conflicts.
Yeah,
Upper
I
or
guess
lower
the only
numbers?
other thing is that playground can't hold 50 people given current guidelines, I would think. So Board of Health,
No,
would the playground, they're not on a field. If they're on the playground, that playground's pretty small.
There are 2 playgrounds at Broadmeadow.
Right. I mean, again, it's not our decision, but I think we'd have to defer to the Board of Health on what is the proper number of people. that
right
could
now,
be-
the state guidelines are 50 outdoors. So, right now, that is
So right-
approvable.
So right
It
now,
is within the regulations.
okay.
Okay.
Right. Okay. Any further questions? Well, as I've said several times tonight, I would entertain a motion.
I guess I'll make it. I will entertain the motion to approve the request for Broadmeadow PTC for the date of the 25th with a rain date of the 1st of November, as stated in their descriptions, but would also need the approval of the Board of Health to have it go through.
Second,
Second. Any further discussion? Commissioner Toolan?
I just request that the administration staff director just let them know that when we say exclusive use, it is of the playground, and that there will be other groups utilizing the fields, which will have traffic in the parking lot with kindergartners running around. I just think it's something that they need to be aware of.
Will do.
All right, thank you. With no further discussion, we'll come to the vote. Commissioner Gerstel,
Aye.
Commissioner Williams,
Aye.
Commissioner Toolan.
Aye.
The chair is also an aye. Passes unanimously. All right, thank you. And we will off on St. Joseph. We don't
Cindy, you cut out on that. Can you say that again?
Yeah, sorry, there was some kind of background noise. Not at on the computer. We'll hold off on St. Joe since we don't have anything to look at or any details.
You don't have a special event request yet from St. Joe's.
Yes. Okay. All right. Anything else? All right. Could I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Second. Just take a roll call vote. Commissioner Gerstel,
Aye.
Commissioner Toolan,
Aye.
Commissioner Williams.
Aye.
There is also an aye. Meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Thank you, Stacy.
Thank you.
Deal.
All right.
Thank you.
See you.